everyone, welcome back to our latest video in this series on the Decision Desk HQ YouTube channel. I'm Liberty Vittert, the Senior Data Scientist here at DDHQ. In today's polling average, we are excited to debut two brand new averages in Democratic-leaning states, where polls suggest they might actually be vulnerable for Joe Biden this November. We also have brand new polls updating the average in each of the 7 key battlegrounds, including a new leader in an absolutely pivotal state. As always, we're going to explore the landscape of the 2024 Electoral College map, drawing on the most recent polling data from Decision Desk HQ and The Hill. For a more in-depth comparison, be sure to review our previous analysis available on our channel, and also make sure to visit elections2024.thehill.com for updated information accessible via the first link in this video's description below. It's important to note that a state must have at least 5 qualifying polls to be included in our polling average. Overall, DDHQ has generated polling averages in 16 states now. These states are our focus today, while the others have already been placed into race rating categories based upon the results of the 2020 presidential election. Safe states were decided by more than 12 points in either direction, likely states by 7 to 12 points, and lean states between 2 to 7 points. We're going to switch things up going forward and place states with polling margins below 2% in either direction remaining in the toss-up category. As you can see here, with all of the states in which we currently have an average available marked down as toss-ups for now, Joe Biden holds a preliminary lead over Donald Trump with 135 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 126. 270 votes are, of course, required to win the presidential election. So let's jump right in. We'll be cycling through the states by order of margin this time around, just to switch things up once again, which leads us to get started in California. The Golden State is by no means competitive, but is the most populous state in the nation with the largest electoral college count up for grabs. There has been more than enough pollster attention for us to have generated an average. Biden leads Trump by 20 points, which has remained the same since Super Tuesday, as we haven't seen a poll since then. To no one's surprise, California kicks off by remaining a solid Dem state on the electoral map. Now let's shift all the way across the country to Florida, the polar opposite to California in more ways than one. Namely, the Sunshine State has been decided by a margin of less than 6 points in 8 consecutive presidential elections, the longest active streak of any state. This consistent pattern has essentially made Florida synonymous with the term swing state on election nights across recent years. Democrats spent more money on Florida than any other state in the 2016 and 2020 election cycles, but that definitely won't be the case here in 2024 after Trump carried it by 3.4% in 2020, marking it as only one of 8 states where he improved his performance compared to 2016. Further emphasizing the state's Republican swing, incumbent Governor Ron DeSantis and Senator Marco Rubio were reelected in 2022 by substantial margins of 19 and 16 points respectively. While Trump is unlikely to reach those margins, he certainly appears on pace to win in Florida by the largest margin for a presidential candidate in decades. No new polls have been added to the average since last week, so Trump's lead remains 12.9% based upon 9 polls included in our latest average. That translates to a safe Republican margin in Florida over on the electoral map. Up in Ohio, the Buckeye State voted for Obama in 2008 and 2012 before shifting hard in favor of Trump in the 2016 election and staying firmly in his column in 2020. The polling average here still has Trump leading by 11 points based on 10 polls, as no new polls have been added since mid-March. Trump has led by double digits in 6 consecutive polls taken in Ohio, a very worrying sign for the Democratic Party's already slim odds at holding control of the U.S. Senate. Democratic incumbent Senator Sherrod Brown will in all likelihood need to outrun Biden by a very wide margin to be re-elected to a 3rd term this November. Back on the Electoral College map, Ohio goes in the likely Republican column. And on that note, jumping right over to Iowa, similar story to Ohio here. After voting for Obama twice, it became a reliably Republican state in the Trump era, backing him by margins between 8 to 9 points in both 2016 and 2020. The polling average suggests a continuation of this trend here as Trump leads Biden by 9.5 points based on 8 polls. That average has not changed since early February, and it also translates to a likely Republican race rating on the map in Iowa. Down in Texas now, we debuted this average a little over 2 weeks ago, and since then, Trump has seen a nice boost, largely coming from a brand new Marist College poll over the week, which shows Trump leading by 11 points with 55% to Biden's 44%. His overall lead has jumped from 6.6% to 8.7% now, based on a total of 9 polls. Trump now holds an average of 51.9% to Biden's 43.2%. So as we go back over to the electoral map, Texas becomes a likely GOP state from lean GOP in our latest update. Next on the list is the first of our 2 new averages here in Colorado, which outpaced the national trend towards Democrats by the most of any state between 2016 and 2020, backing Biden by 13.5 points. As you'd expect, the incumbent leads in our initial polling average here based on 8 polls by a margin of 7.8%. Biden is led in all 8 of those polls by at least 4 percentage points. Over on the map, Colorado becomes our first and only likely Biden state. Up in the Northeast now, we still haven't seen a poll in New Hampshire since mid-January, as Biden continues to lead by 6.2% based on 8 polls. The Granite State has voted Republican just once over the last 8 presidential elections, though it has consistently been the most competitive state in New England during that time span. Nevertheless, it continues to lean Biden on our polling-based map. And with that, it's time now to debut the second of our 2 new averages in the state of Minnesota. Biden leads Trump by 5.5 points based on 7 polls. The incumbent Democratic president holds an average of 44% across these surveys, compared to the former Republican president's 38.5%. Minnesota notably holds the longest active streak of consistently voting Democratic in presidential elections. It hasn't backed a Republican presidential candidate since Richard Nixon in 1972. Trump came within 1.5 points of breaking that streak in 2016, just as he came within 0.5 point in New Hampshire in that election, before Biden swung both states back comfortably into the Democratic column by more than 7 points each in 2020. Minnesota will also go down as a lean Democrat state on the map. North Carolina is next, a perennial purple state that has been decided by less than 5 percentage points in 4 straight presidential elections. Republicans have won each of the last 3. It is a state that Trump will absolutely need to hold in 2024 if he's to take back the White House, as any further losses to his 2020 coalition would be very detrimental to his chances of reaching 270. So far, Trump has consistently looked very strong in the Tar Heel state, although once again, his average lead over Biden has decreased, now down 5.1%. That's cut more than in half from his peak lead of 10.4% that he held on the 1st of March. We have added new polls to the average since last week, one from the Wall Street Journal, one from Marist College, and one from YouGov. The Marist poll showed Trump leading by 3 points among 1,197 registered voters, while the YouGov poll had Trump leading by just 1 point among 785 likely voters, and the Wall Street Journal poll has his lead at 6 points among 600 registered voters. That 1 point lead in the YouGov poll is his narrowest margin of lead over Biden in any one poll we've added to our average in more than a year. That's absolutely something worth noting here as we mark North Carolina down as lean Republican. Just to the north, we have the Commonwealth of Virginia. No new polls again this week, as Biden's lead remains at 4.7% based on 12 polls. The incumbent president carried Virginia's 13 electoral votes by 10 points in 2020, the largest margin for a Democrat in this formerly reliable Republican state since 1944. It, just like Minnesota and New Hampshire, goes down as lean Democrat. That being said, while these states are likely to be out of the reach for the Trump campaign in 2024, they're not among the states he needs to flip to reach 270. That leaves the 6 closest states in terms of polling right now, and they just so happen to be the 6 states that are considered to be the most essential battlegrounds in 2024. All 6 were decided by less than 3 points in the last election, and with the exception of Nevada, they all backed Trump in 2016 before flipping to Biden in 2020. Taking a quick look at the race to 270, Trump leads with 235 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 226. If all of the other averages in the 11 less competitive states were gone over already, hold steady, Joe Biden would at minimum have to carry at least 3 out of these 6 states to hit 270. But if he loses Pennsylvania, that number would increase to 4. Trump, meanwhile, could hit 270 with wins in just Pennsylvania and Georgia, or by carrying any 3 of these except Nevada. Perhaps the most surprising fact in today's update is that Trump's widest margin of lead as of recording this video is in Michigan. The former president leads sitting President Biden by 4.5 points based on 34 polls, with 3 new polls added to the average since the last time we looked at it. 4.5 points is obviously a strong lead for Trump at face value, but it becomes all the more notable considering he lost to Biden here by 2.8% in 2020. It was Biden's largest margin of victory in any of these 6 remaining states, and out of the 3 battleground Rust Belt states, including Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, it is generally considered to be the least Republican-friendly based on demographic trends and recent electoral history. Nevertheless, it also goes down as lean Republican. Very, very interesting. Next, we'll head to Arizona, where his advantage over Biden sits at just over 4 points, 4.2%, based on 32 polls. We've updated this average with 2 new polls this week, slightly decreasing Trump's lead by 0.4%. As well, a Wall Street Journal poll found him leading by 5 points. The latest poll from Rabba Research had him leading by just 3 points. Going back to the map now, we'll label Arizona as lean Republican. It's important to remember that Arizona has seen a significant shift towards the Democrats since 2012, outpacing the national trend by over 8 points. Biden's 2020 victory marked just the second Democratic win in the Grand Canyon state since 1948. The only other Democrat to do it was Bill Clinton in 1996. Additionally, Democrats have secured 3 consecutive Senate victories here. So if this polling margin holds, it would be a very bad sign for the Biden reelect. Just to the north and to the west of Arizona is Nevada. Across every election in American history, I have to check that every time, in American history there stands this simple fact. Each time that the White House has switched parties, the winning candidate has brought a new state into their party's coalition that they did not have the last time they won the presidency. For Trump in 2024, that would almost certainly be the state of Nevada. It has been widely reported as one of the Republican primary pickup targets this November as the party looks to take advantage of their momentum in the state coming off a very successful 2022 midterm cycle in which they flipped the governor's office and came within a point of flipping the Senate seat from an incumbent Democrat. Trump currently leads Biden by 3.8% based on 23 polls included in the Nevada average. That's down from 4.6% last update. This is Trump's narrowest margin of lead since January in Nevada, with 3 polls added to average over the last 2 weeks. The first from Bloomberg Morning Consult, but released much more recently. It was surveyed March 18th to 15th, had Trump's lead at just 2 points over Biden. Well, an even more recent Emerson College poll had him leading by 3 points. The Wall Street Journal poll has Trump leading by 4 points here. Going back to the map, Nevada still remains firmly in the lean Republican column, adding to Trump's tally as he now sits just 3 votes shy of 270 with 267. 3 states remain on the board as we go to Georgia, which actually has an identical margin of lead for Trump at 3.8% based on 26 polls here. It's also the narrowest it's been since last September, down from the high at 7.4% last month. The latest survey from the Wall Street Journal showed Trump lead by just 1 percentage point among 600 registered voters. Georgia was the closest state in the nation in 2020. Like in Arizona, Biden flipped it into the Democratic column for the first time since 1996. Yet with it obviously joining Nevada in the lean Republican column, Georgia lifts Trump above 270, all the way up to 283 electoral votes. And now for the final time, we'll be shifting back to the Midwest, to the state of Wisconsin, which along with Michigan and Pennsylvania make up that upper Rust Belt trio that you'll be hearing about all too often over the coming months. This trio has traditionally been a part of the blue wall, having voted Democrat in 6 straight elections between 1992 and 2012. But Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania broke away from Minnesota in 2016, each backing Trump by less than a point over Clinton, before then flipping back in favor of Biden by less than 3 points each in 2020. Had Trump carried them in 2020, he would be serving a second term right now, and we would be having a very different update. Trump's lead has narrowed from 2.7% last week to just 1.5% now, based on 19 polls here in the Badger State. Never heard the Badger State before. This comes as a result of 2 surveys being added to the average over the last 2 weeks, showing Biden and Trump ahead by 1 point each. The Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll, surveying 697 registered voters, had Biden leading by a point, while the Wall Street Journal poll had Trump in front by a point. With the overall margin at just 1.5 points, this means that Wisconsin remains in the toss-up category under our new rating classifications. So now let's go to Pennsylvania. We saved the biggest news for last, as for the first time since January, Joe Biden leads Donald Trump in the Keystone State by 0.6% based on 35 polls. For the first time since we began doing these weekly updates, Biden is in front in a key battleground, thanks in large part to a Franklin and Marshall College poll from this past week, showing Biden leading by 10 points. This is obviously an outlier. It's the first poll to show either candidate leading by that wide of a margin, and is the only poll showing Biden leading at all since February. Nonetheless, this means that Pennsylvania joins Wisconsin by remaining in the toss-up category. And so that wraps up these race ratings based upon the DDHQ and the Hill polling averages, which you can check out at elections2024.thehill.com. Donald Trump continues to lead in the race to 270, with 283 electoral votes to Biden's 226. Under our previous rating classifications, with Wisconsin going down as lean Republican and Pennsylvania as lean Democrat, Trump would be leading by 293 electoral votes to Biden's 245. Feel free to leave your thoughts, comments, and reactions in the comments below. And that is all for this Decision Desk HQ update. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click that like button down below if you did indeed like it, and subscribe to the channel down below if you haven't already. Also, check out more content from our channel here, and we will catch you next time.